The Moonshine Wars, America's bootleg battleground. The ratification of the 18th Amendment on January 16, 1919, and the subsequent Volstead Act that took effect on January 17, 1920, ignited what would become known as the Moonshine Wars, a violent, decade-long conflict between federal revenue agents, local law enforcement, and the moonshiners who had operated in Appalachian hollers for generations. Prohibition didn't create moonshining in America. Scots-Irish immigrants had been distilling illegal whiskey in the mountains of Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia since the late 1700s, perfecting their craft in remote hollows where federal tax collectors rarely ventured. But the nationwide alcohol ban transformed what had been a regional cottage industry into a massive criminal enterprise worth millions of dollars. The mountaineers possessed several advantages: generational knowledge of distilling, intimate familiarity with treacherous mountain terrain, family networks that prized loyalty above law, and an existing distribution system. When America went dry, demand for their product exploded overnight. A gallon of moonshine that cost 50 cents to produce could sell for $5 to $10 in nearby cities, astronomical profits that made the risks worthwhile. On one side stood the moonshiners themselves, families like the Franklins in Virginia, the Mahoneys in North Carolina, and countless others whose names never made the newspapers. These weren't gangsters in the Al Capone mold. They were farmers, miners, and mountain people who saw moonshining as their birthright and the government as an unwelcome intruder. Opposing them were the revenuers, federal prohibition agents, and Treasury Department officers. The most famous was Basil DeLoach, who led raids across the Southeast. These agents were often outnumbered, outgunned, and unfamiliar with terrain where moonshiners could disappear into the laurel thickets within seconds. Local sheriffs found themselves in an impossible position, caught between federal law and communities where everyone's cousin ran a still. The first major bloodshed came early. In Franklin County, Virginia, which locals called the wettest county in the world, violence became routine by 1921. Shootouts between deputies and bootleggers left bodies on both sides. The county's moonshiners were so brazen that they operated stills within sight of the county courthouse. In Cook County, Tennessee, the situation grew equally desperate. Federal agents conducting a raid in 1922 were ambushed by moonshiners using military tactics, coordinated fire from elevated positions, booby traps along mountain trails, and warning systems using everything from church bells to dynamite blasts. One agent, attempting to navigate Cosby Creek, was shot from a ridgeline 300 yards away by a moonshiner with a hunting rifle. The moonshiners developed sophisticated defenses. They rigged alarm systems using tripwires connected to bells or shotgun shells. They posted lookouts with mirrors to flash warnings using sunlight. Some hollows became virtual fortresses, with families prepared to defend their stills with Winchester rifles and homemade explosives. The more elaborate operations employed scouts on horseback who could relay warnings faster than any government vehicle could navigate the mountain roads. The violence reached its apex with the Franklin County conspiracy trials of 1935, though the corruption they exposed had festered since Prohibition's earliest days. A grand jury investigation revealed that local law enforcement, led by a deputy sheriff, had been running a protection racket. For a fee, moonshiners could operate with impunity, while competitors were raided and arrested. The conspiracy involved bootleggers, law enforcement, and even some local officials. When federal investigators finally cracked the case, it resulted in one of the largest corruption trials in Virginia history. The testimony revealed murders, bribery, and a system where the law itself had become a tool of organized crime. The most notorious incident involved the killing of an informant whose body was found in the woods, a warning to anyone considering cooperation with federal authorities. The roads themselves became battlefields. Moonshiners developed the art of outrunning the law, souping up ordinary Ford coupes and Chevrolet sedans with reinforced suspensions, powerful engines, and secret compartments. These were the original stock car racers, drivers like Junior Johnson from North Carolina, who could navigate pitch-black mountain roads at terrifying speeds while being pursued by revenue agents. The chase often turned deadly. Cars plunged off mountain roads in the darkness. Agents set up roadblocks that resulted in crashes and shootouts. In one infamous 1925 incident near Asheville, North Carolina, a moonshine runner refused to stop for a federal roadblock. The ensuing chase ended when the runner's car, loaded with 120 gallons of white lightning, crashed and exploded, killing the driver and severely burning 2 passengers. The operations themselves ranged from crude to sophisticated. A simple groundhog still, a basic pot still dug into a hillside, might produce 30 gallons a week. But by the mid-1920s, some operations rivaled commercial distilleries. Agents raiding a still in Dawson County, Georgia, in 1926, discovered a steam-powered operation producing 200 gallons daily, complete with copper coils, temperature gauges, and a water cooling system fed by a mountain spring. The product quality varied wildly. Some moonshiners took pride in their craft, producing corn whiskey that rivaled legal bourbon. Others cut corners dangerously, failing to discard the toxic foreshots that contained methanol or using car radiators as condensers, which could leach lead into the liquor. Newspapers periodically reported deaths from Jake leg, paralysis, or methanol poisoning, though moonshiners blamed these incidents on city-based bootleggers who adulterated good mountain whiskey. By 1933, when Prohibition finally ended, the Moonshine Wars had claimed dozens of lives, perhaps more than 100, though exact numbers remain unknown because many deaths in remote areas went unreported or were attributed to other causes. Federal agents had been shot, stabbed, and beaten. Moonshiners had been killed in raids, in car chases, and in internecine warfare between rival operations. Families were torn apart. Children grew up with fathers in federal prison. Widows were left to work hardscrabble farms alone. The violence bred a culture of silence and suspicion that would persist for generations. Even today, in counties where these battles raged, locals remain reluctant to discuss what happened during those years. The repeal of Prohibition didn't end moonshining, it merely reduced it. The federal government still taxed legal liquor, and for many mountain families, the old ways persisted. Sporadic violence continued into the 1950s and beyond, though nothing approaching the scale of the 1920s. The Moonshine Wars left an indelible mark on Appalachian culture. They reinforced the region's distrust of federal authority and its fierce independence. They also created legends of fearless runners, clever distillers, and a time when ordinary mountain people defied the government and, for a while at least, won. The souped-up cars and daredevil drivers directly spawned NASCAR, founded in 1948 by Bill France Sr., who recognized that the same crowds who gathered to watch moonshine runners evade the law might pay to see them race legally. The skills honed on dark mountain roads, the ability to control a car at the edge of disaster, to read terrain, to take calculated risks, became the foundation of American stock car racing. In the hollows and hillsides, where stills once bubbled and revenue agents once pursued their quarry, the physical evidence has mostly vanished. But the stories remain, passed down through families, a testament to a time when America tried to legislate morality and found that some laws are written in sand, not stone.